24th of October, Rabbi Lang substituting for Rabbi Levitt for Gomorrah.
Where is he? Here we are. Good morning, Phil.
Good morning. How are we doing?
Anybody know how to transfer the audio to your Bluetooth on the settings over here? Which setting you use to transfer the Bluetooth?
If you look at the bottom of your screen, there's a picture of a microphone. So on the right of that picture, there's a little up arrow. Click on that, and it says select a microphone, select a speaker.
Yeah.
So under select a speaker, you have to find your Bluetooth. If your Bluetooth is connected to your computer, it should show up there. I don't have a Bluetooth, so Bluetooth doesn't show up for me.
It doesn't show up for me either. It just says speakers and same as system. Those are the two options. On my computer, it could be that Bluetooth doesn't work with Zoom. Is that possible?
Possible, yeah. I don't have any experience with it.
Nice if it works with it. It also is not compatible with my phone. I would like, when I give a share, I would like to use it as a microphone, but it's not compatible with the audio on my phone either. So
I just clicked on your link and it says this channel does not exist.
right, it doesn't exist. I guess I wrote something wrong. Hold on a second. What did I write here? I have no idea.
Yeah, I also got this channel doesn't exist. Phil, we're talking about Bensie's YouTube. He's put it on the message list down there.
You're talking about Bluetooth, not YouTube.
Yes, and in the chat.
That's okay. I'm not worried about it. I don't have a Bluetooth. I don't bother with a Bluetooth. So it doesn't bother.
This is the YouTube. All of our children opted out of YouTube.
Bluetooth.
Bluetooth.
No, out of YouTube.
Bluetooth. B-L-U-E.
I know, I'm talking about Y-O-U.
No, it's a blue tube. B-L-U-E-T-U-B-E.
Thing you stick in your ear to get to make sound instead of the other way. This is working as it is.
All right.
All right, here. I'll try to get the link for tomorrow. Doesn't seem to, for some reason. All right, let's start the Gomorrah. We're on Daf Pei Zion, which is 87A. All right. I'm going to go back to a couple lines in the Gemara, and I want to do a Tosfos also. We're going to discuss this last part of Rabbi Yehuda, where he talks about whether a blind person is exempt from doing mitzvos or not. About about 6 or 7 lines down from the top of Pei Zayim and Aleph. V'chein haya Rabbi Yehuda potro mikol mitzvos hamuras b'Torah. You find that place?
Mhm.
All right, Phil, you want to read this? V'chein haya Rabbi Yehuda potro mikol mitzvos hamuras b'Torah.
Similarly, Rabbi Yehuda was pater from all the mitzvahs in the Torah. Omar Rav. What?
Rabbi Yehuda exempted a summa. He didn't pater himself. He exempted a summa.
Yeah, he exempted a summa from all the mitzvahs in the Torah.
Right. Okay.
Omar Rav Sheshes, the Rabbi Adi, Rav Sheshes said in the my timer, what's the reason of the Rabbi Yehuda? What's the reason of Rabbi Yehuda? Omar Kra, the pasuk says, the Eila hamitzvos achukim mishpatim, and these are the you have to find them commandments, statutes, and laws. Kol yishanu the mishpatim, yishanu the mitzvos. All the things you learn about that you teach or whatever, understand in laws also apply in mitzvahs. The mitzvahs v'chukim in terms of mitzvahs and in laws. Okay, so he by putting the laws together with it, he's doing the fact that since he can't go to what it said earlier about him not being able to go to din, and if he can't go to din, which is the mishpatim factor, therefore, once he's exempt from din, he should also automatically be exempt from mitzvahs and chukim.
Okay. V'chol she'eino b'mishpatim eino b'mitzvos v'chukim. The continuation of that, anyone who is not obligated in din is not responsible for din. He's not also included in mitzvos and chukim. Let's continue a little bit. Amar of Yosef.
Get back on my spot again. Amar Rabbi Yosef says Maresh who Maresha who it's from the first part.
Reish Hava Amina.
Hava Amina from no okay. Amar Reb. Yeah, let me go back. Yeah, Amar Rabbi Yosef Maresha from the first part. I would have thought Man Omar Halacha Rabbi Yehuda, that according to the one who says the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. The Omar that says Sumash Pater Mina Mitzvahs. The summa of a blind person would be Pater for the mitzvahs. Ka Avidin, now I do a Yom Tov, a holiday for the Rabbanim. He's glad about that rule. My time, or what's the reason? The low mafkirena, because he didn't make it hefka, so he didn't make it
Mafkadina, it's a dollar.
Mafkadina, that he's not makbid.
He's not commanded. Mifkad means to be commanded. He's not commanded.
The chain of avarni mitzvahs, and of someone who that's avad. Avadi, he did mitzvahs. The hashta, now the shmiel, they heard it, Reb Chanina, the Amar Reb Chanina, the dol mitzvahs, will say, someone who, the greater is the one who's commanded and does. The Meisha mitzvah, let's say, the one who is not commanded and does. Man the Omale, according to the one says to me, Ein halacha Rabbi Yehuda, the one according to the one who says halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, that the halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda, avadni Yom Tov, I'm going to make a holiday for the Rabbanim. My Tama, the Chi Mafkinin, Islay, Agra Tefei. It's because the one who is commanded is, to him, there's more of an Agra. What's an Agra?
It's a scar, a reward.
There's more of a greater reward.
All right, so basically the Gemara is saying, Rabbi Yehuda says that as opposed to Rabbanan, Rabbi Yehuda says a summa is exempt from mitzvahs in the Torah. He doesn't have to perform mitzvahs. And Rav Yosef commented on that, and he said originally he thought that anyone says the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, it's a machlokas between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbanan holds that a blind person would be obligated in mitzvahs, but Rabbi Yosef, whoever told me that halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, so I would have been very happy. Because why? Because he was blind. So he was saying, I'm very happy that now I'm exempt from mitzvahs, because he was going to do the mitzvahs anyway. He was a great rabbi. He was doing the mitzvahs anyway, so he thought he was getting more reward for doing mitzvahs when he's not commanded to do them. And then once he heard what Rabbi Chanina said, that Gadol HaMetzuva Osa Yoser Me'esh She'ena Metzuva Osa, greater is one who is obligated and does than one who is not obligated and does. He said the opposite. He says anyone who tells halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda, I mean halacha is like the Rabbanan, right, that a summa is obligated in mitzvahs, then he would be very happy, because then it would mean that he's commanded to do the mitzvahs and he does them. So he would get more reward for that. I want to do this Tosfos over here and talk about this a little bit. There's a lot of interesting things to talk about. How a blind person, is he really exempt from all mitzvahs in the Torah, including, is he allowed to do an Aveira? Is he allowed to steal? Is he allowed to eat cheeseburger? I'm saying, is he allowed to do those things also, assume, according to Rabbi Yehuda? Or does it just mean that he doesn't have to do a mitzvah, like sit in the sukkah or fast on Yom Kippur, things like that? Mitzvah's essay. That's one topic to discuss. And a couple of days ago, we were mentioning another topic also I wanted to discuss, is if you hold that a summa, Rabbi Yehuda holds a summa is exempt from doing mitzvahs, why, when a summa does mitzvahs, originally he said he was very happy, because why is it not a problem of Baal Tosef, of adding on to the Torah while you're not obligated to do? So what was Rabbi Yosef really thinking? That if he's not mitzvah, he's not obligated, he's doing it anyway, it should be Baal Tosef, it should be adding on to the Torah. And then the third thing I wanted to talk about is, what is the reasoning both ways to assume that it's greater to be commanded and do it, or originally you thought it's greater not to be commanded and do it? Why would you say both ways? So let's start this Tosfos. Tosfos the Ramasal v'chein haya Rabbi Yehuda potro mikol mitzvos amuros b'Torah. Lou, you want to read Tosfos?
V'chein haya Rabbi Yehuda potro mikol hamitzvos b'Torah. And so it was that Rabbi Yehuda exempted from all mitzvahs of the Torah. Tema, it's a wonder. Ha ditsanan beperek ha kore es hamagila. We learned in Perek HaKoreh as HaMegillah in the Megillah. It's in Megillah Daf Kaf Dalid Vasham. I'm not sure what Vasham means.
There, it's Perek is the name of the Perek in the second Megillah.
It's a Tosfos. So he's referring to a Tosfos over there that he brings up the same topic over there. They were a maskal me, it says on the side of the Gemara. If you look on Daf 24a in Megillah, you'll see he talks about a similar topic in the start of the Tosfos, says the word me.
Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Kol Shelo Ro'eh Oros. Rabbi Yehuda said, Phil, I think your drilling is going on.
I don't think so, but I'll put it on silent anyway, because I have the window almost closed.
Thank you. Rabbi Yehuda says, anyone that does not see me'oros, I don't know what me'oros is.
He didn't see any light, meaning he never saw anything. He's blind. It's another way of saying he's blind.
Or somebody who never saw light, mimav, lo yif rosh, yifrom, al
Gross.
yifros, al shema, afilu ro'eh, Venisma. Okay, so what is mimav?
Yamav. He never saw, I mean, he was blind from birth. He never saw light in his days. He was blind from birth. It says in Megillah, Lo Yifros al Shema. He can't lead. There's something called Yiparis al Shema. It's an abbreviated. We don't really do this nowadays, but it's a way of if you come late to davening, you start saying the chazan. You get 10 people to start from the Birchos Kriyat Shema and to say it through Shemona Esrei. Anyway, it says that a person who's blind shouldn't be leading that. He shouldn't be the leader of that group.
Okay, so Venisma is the partial service.
He says, "Afilu ra v'nisma nami amar hacha depatur mikol mitzvos." Our Gomorrah, it doesn't distinguish. That Gomorrah in Megillah says only talking about someone who never saw light, meaning he was blind from birth. Meaning that if he saw at birth and he became blind during his lifetime, then he could be Paris al Shema. The our Gomorrah over here, it just says Summa, it just says a blind person, seemingly without mentioning what type of blind person. It would include any type of blind person, whether you were blind from birth or you became blind during your lifetime. Here it says, here, our Gemara, according to Rabbi Yehuda, says, "Assuma, whatever situation you are, whether you're blind at birth or became blind afterwards, you're exempt from Kriya Shema." So this is asking the question, how could it be? It's Mashra from the Gemara, implied in the Gemara in Megillah, only someone who never saw light, he was blind from birth. But what about if he was born with the ability to see and then he became blind? It seems from the Gemara in Megillah that he could be the Chaz and he could be Motzi Acher Midei Chavas and he could be the Shliach Sibor. So how could that be? And that the Gemara is Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, it's the same Rabbi Yehuda as we have over here. So if we're dealing with the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda, how could Rabbi Yehuda hold in our Gemara here in Bava Kama that a summa, no matter what type of summa you are, you're exempt from all the mitzvahs in the Torah? How could he lead the Kriya Shema? How could he lead the Kriya Shema? Because he's not obligated. The Gemara Megillah seems that he would be obligated as long as he wasn't born blind. Understand the question?
I'm totally lost.
Totally lost. Okay, I'll say it very simply. Simply, the argument says, Remuda says a blind person is exempt from mitzvahs, right?
Right.
He doesn't do mitzvahs. The Gemara in Megillah says that there's two types of blind person. If you're a blind person from birth, then you're not obligated to mitzvahs, and you can't be a shliach tzibur. If you were born not blind and you became blind, so then you are obligated in mitzvahs, basically. So it sounds like Gemara, a blind person, no matter what, even if you became blind after birth, you're exempt from mitzvahs, according to Rabbi Yehuda. And the Gemara in Megillah says that if you were born with the ability to see and then you became blind, you would be obligated in mitzvahs. So it's a question on that Gemara from here, on Megillah from Bava Kama.
You're questioning the Megillah because it disagrees with Rabbi Yehuda?
Yeah, both Rabbi Yehuda is the one talking in Megillah, and he's the one talking over here. It's the same Tana. It's Rabbi Yehuda Bar Eli. So
Well, Rabbi Yehuda in Megillah says that only one who's blind from birth is exempt. And Rabbi Yehuda in Bava Kama says all blind people are exempt. Okay, I got it.
got that, Roy?
I think so.
Phil, you're on the same page with us?
Yes.
No, Phil, you're on the same page?
I'm okay, but I'm muted because I was told to mute. I got it. The question in Megillah, the fact that it's specifically from who never saw from his birth, from those days, it mentioned that. So therefore, the inference is that since it's specifically only mentioned for his days, means that's only that case. And another case, he wouldn't be involved. It wouldn't be the same with the opposite rule. Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
it's saying. That's the inference in Megillah that seems to contradict our inference here.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna skip a couple of lines because it's not really relevant, and it's sort of based on our Yerushalmi, what he says. We're learning Talmud Bavli, so we're gonna go to his answer about 4 lines down in the wide lines. Towards the end of the lines is Venira. Venira, the Afal Gav, the Pater Rabbi Yehuda, Suma Mikol Mitzvah. Do you see that?
Yes,
It says the word Venira.
Venira.
Okay, so why don't you continue, Lou? Venira.
And it seems the Aval Gav that even though the Pater Rabbi Yehuda, that Rabbi Yehuda says it's permitted or he's exempt, Suma, a blind person is exempt, Mikol HaMitzvos, from all the commandments, Mikol Makom, nevertheless, de Miramban Chayiv,
Rabbanan.
the Mirabanan, that the Rabbanan say he is obligated. The Afal Gav de Asa Miftara, that even though that they make him exempt.
Isha. Isha is a woman.
Oh, that even though that a woman is exempt, b'mitzvos aseh, from the positive commandments, shehazman grama, that are fixed in time, below mechai vinan, and we don't obligate her afilu de merabanan, even according to the rabbis, mishum sheyesh mitzvos harbe, because there are many commandments, the mechayvas, that she is obligated in, the behu, that she obligates her. Aval suma e patras lay, a blind person, if we exempt him, mikol mitzvos, from all commandments, afilu mi de rabbanan, even from the rabbinical. Is this im kain?
Yeah.
If so, or therefore, I don't know what hey lamed is.
Avale.
Hapale.
Avale kimo nachri. He'll be like a non-Jew.
If we exempt him from everything, even the rabbinicals, then he will be like a non-Jew. That she'ein noheg b'toras Yisrael, that he's not accustomed to the Torah of Israel. Wow, at all. L'chein oso shalo ro'eh me'oros. And therefore, he does not see, what's me'oros? Oh, light. He does not see light, mimav, from birth, afilu de mirabanan, even from the rabbis, lo yifros al shema. What's yifros?
Yifros al Hashma. It means to lead this type of minyan that you start from the Birkos Kriya Shema.
Oh, not to lead the short minyan. Havan delays lay hania, since he does not get benefit.
Right. Exactly.
Aval im ro'eh v'nis tama, if he sees, what's nis tama?
Becomes blind.
What?
He becomes blind.
If
Because the
he
sumer in
if he
it, that
sees and
it's
then
the reflex of it.
afterwards
And then he
becomes
becomes blind.
he's chayav midrabanan. He's obligated from the rabbis. Umotze terim acherim yedei chovosan. He can exempt others according to his obligation.
Their obligation. He can be exempt them from their obligation.
Their obligation. He can exempt them from their obligation. The acherim nami lo mechayev ella midrabanan, that the others are only obligated from the rabbis. What's this abbreviation?
The Kriya Shema. In
The
Kriya Shema.
Kriya Shema, that short service, the Rabbanan, he ki de amar b'mei shemato, tomato. So the rabbis that they said, what is demei shemato?
Is a pasuk, is a parak in Brachos, the third parak in Brachos.
Oh, they said in the third parak in Brachos, below demei chayiv.
They say that the mitzvah of Kriya Shema is only midrabanan. So therefore, since it's only derabanan, the summa could lead that minyan because he's also mechuyev midrabanan. Meaning, there's normally a concept that if someone has an obligation from the Torah and you're only obligated midrabanan, you can't be motzi, you can't remove his responsibility from a mitzvah d'oraisa. You can't fulfill it for him. But if you're both on the same level, you're each derabanan, so then you could. So that's why he has to say that Kriya Shema is derabanan. He brings a proof that the mitzvah of saying Kriya Shema is only derabanan anyway. It's a subject of dispute. It's not so clear that the mitzvah of Kriya Shema is derabanan.
What do we care if it's Rabbanan or not?
Because the concept is, let's say someone's obligated to bench from the Torah, right? You eat a meal, you achalta v'savata, you.
I get that part, but how does
Right. So if I'm derabanan, if someone's derabanan, for example, a katan or something like that, he's only a gil chinuch, a kid who's 10 years old, let's say, you don't know how to bench, so you want to listen to his benching and be motzi and be yotze shomea kaona, right? There's a concept that you listen to someone saying something, a bracha, you can fulfill your obligation through listening to that bracha. So let's say that a 10-year-old wants to motzi an older person in benching, and that older person is obligated from the Torah. Once you're 13, you're obligated from the Torah as long as you ate satiation. So that we know there's a concept. You can't do that. You can't do that. You have to be on the same level. If someone wants to exempt you from a chiv, he has to be either both have to be derabanan or both have to be daraisa. But a derabanan can't be motzi daraisa. That's why Tosos is struggling to
Why do I
prove
care?
over
Why do I
here
care?
that over here he's making a chiddush over here. He's saying that a summa, if he never saw anything in his life, he was blind from birth. So then he's not obligated at all, even from the Rabbanan. But he's saying, based on our Gomorrah, which seems to indicate, which Megillah seems to indicate that a summa who was born with sight and then he became blind, he's obligated. He could be multi other people, so he's obligated at least midrabanan. That's what it says. It says summa is obligated midrabanan.
Yeah, so
But since he's only obligated derabanan, so you can only be multi people who are derabanan of a chiv derabanan. So if the whole chiv of Kriya Shema is only midrabanan, so then I can be multi somebody else. But if you say that mitzvah Kriya Shema is d'oraisa, is from the Torah, since the summa, the most you can be chayav is derabanan, so you can't be multi other people.
I see. Okay, so l'chiyuva d'katan.
Lo dami chiyuv the summa l'chiyuva the katan shegiel achinach. It's not comparable, the chiyuv of a summa to the chiyuv of a katan shegiel achinach. Katan shegiel achinach is somebody who's a child who has reached the age where you can teach him. Let's say 6 or 7 or 8 years old. He's able to learn. He's able to understand. She'ein ela lechancho. The mitzvah there is only for the father to teach the child. He has no real obligation to the child himself. Afagav the chayiv midrabanan, even though he's only obligated midrabanan, ein poris al shma lahotzi achirim yidei chavasan. He can't exempt other people. The Gemara in Megillah is very clear that even though a type of a summa could, a blind person could emote the other people, a katan shegiel achinach can't. Tells us explaining why that's true. The katan shegiel achinach is not a regular derabanan; it's just a mitzvah of the father to teach his son midrabanan. Not that the actual obligation lies on the shoulders of the minor, of the katan.
Why is the katan relevant? Why is Tosos mentioning the katan?
Tosos is struggling over here. He comes up with a whole a new idea that a summa, even though our Gomorrah really says that a summa is pater from the mitzvos in the Torah, Tosos says that's only on a Torah level, on a doraisa level. Tosos says our Gomorrah really means, even Rabbi Yehuda would agree that a summa is chayiv midrabanan. Once Tosos says that a summa is chayiv midrabanan, then he has a couple difficulties to deal with from the Gemara and Megillah. First of all, if he's only obligated with the Rabbanan, how could he be multi other people in Kriya Shema? Kriya Shema seemingly is a mitzvah d'oraisa. So Tosos answers that. We find the Gemara that seems to say that Kriya Shema maybe is the Rabbanan. That's why Tosos answers the first question. Then Tosos, by the way, another question. The Gemara in Megillah says that a katan, even though he's a giel achinach, and we know a katan giel achinach is obligated with the Rabbanan and mitzvos, he can't be multi other people that are chiv of Kriya Shema. So why is that true? If he's derabanan, should be like a sumo is derabanan. We said he could be multi other people in Kriya Shema. That Tosos answer is that a katan is different because it's not like the chiv of a sumo, which he has a chiv derabanan on his shoulders. The chiv of the katan shegiel achinach is a chiv that the father has to teach him to do the mitzvahs. It's not his own chiv, so it's less than a chiv derabanan of a sumo. So I use that to explain everything. That's basically why he adds these other lines to explain how his resolution of the Summa would fit in with the Gemara and Megillah.
Got it.
I want to go back to what Tosos says something over here. He says that it has to. This is Tosos' chiddush. Tosos says our Gemara clearly says a Summa is exempt from all mitzvahs in the Torah, right? Tosa
Right.
says not so fast. Really, he's obligated midrabanan. Doesn't really sound like that from our Gomorrah. That right? He seems to say it a pretty blatant way, a pretty blanket way that he's exempt from all mitzvahs in the Torah. On face value, I would have said that even midrabanan, he's not responsible. There are Rishonim, I think, who say that really a summa is exempt from all mitzvahs in the Torah. What's Tosas' reasoning? The reason Tosas doesn't want to say that he's completely not obligated is because then he'll be like a goy. He says he'll be like a nachri, because he's going to be what makes him Jewish. He's not obligated in the Torah. He was born Jewish, but none of the 613 mitzvahs apply to him. Another way to resolve this question, I think I've seen other Rishonim, is that they say that even though a summa is not obligated in mitzvahs from the Torah, that's only by mitzvahs essay when it comes to a positive commandment. But when it comes to a negative commandment, he can't violate what the Torah says. He can't go and commit adultery. He can't go and steal. He can't go and be a false witness. Whenever the Torah says you can't do something, you can't do that. Summa is not. You can't go eat a cheeseburger. You can't eat basar v'chalav. You can't eat nevela. There's a lot of things. There's 365 of the mitzvahs are negative commandments. So Tosas doesn't say that. My question is why? Why doesn't he say that? And there are Rishonim that do say this answer. And what would be the source of machlokas between those Rishonim and what Tosfos says that is the Rabbanan? Tosfos is really coming. The crux of Tosfos' proof is coming from Gomorrah and Megillah, which is really bothering him. Because the Gomorrah and Megillah seems to split between two different types of blind people. I would have said that it's not conclusive. Kol shelo, either you can say our Gomorrah is talking about only that type of summa, or you could say, I would say that, right? You could say, just like the Gomorrah and Megillah was talking about someone who's blind from birth, we would say our Gomorrah is also, this is the same Rabbi Yehuda, right? He explained what type of blind person he was talking about. Logically, we would assume he meant the same type of blind person over here. A real summa is someone who's blind from birth. For example, there's different brachas you say. If you see a blind person, there's a bracha you're supposed to say when you see a blind person. It depends whether he's blind from birth or not. If the person is blind from birth, then you say, I think, shakacha lo ba'olamo, like seeing someone who's a strange thing, seeing someone who's a good-looking person, seeing something, a monkey, an elephant, or something like that. You say shakacha lo ba'olamo. You praise God for seeing something interesting in the world. Someone who was born complete and he lost his vision or he lost a limb or something like that, then you say, I think something like Baruch Dayana Emes or a different bracha. It's not Kachalo Balam. I forgot the bracha you say, meaning you're talking about the loss the person suffered. A truly blind person is someone who's blind from birth. That would be a simple resolution. So Rabbi Yehuda here is talking about that person. So that would resolve the question from Megillah, because then we would be saying the Gemara is talking about the same thing. Talking about the same type of summa, someone who was blind from birth. But if you saw at one point in your life, then you became blind, you'd be fully obligated, even according to Yehuda, even in mitzvahs del Raisa. Even from a Torah perspective, from a Torah level, summa would be chayav in all the mitzvahs in the Torah. So that's one way of getting around what Tosas would say. Well, to answer Tosas' question, But also he could have answered, right. And also he could have answered. So that's the two ways of learning. Either we learn that really a person who was blind from birth is exempt from mitzvahs completely. And if you saw at one point in your life, you're obligated on a Torah level. In which case you wouldn't have a problem from the Gemara and Megillah. And you wouldn't come on to this thing that assumes chayav midarabbanan. And based on that, we would also say a second practical difference. If you learn like that, we're free to say that summa, even if you're blind from birth, in which case Rabbi Yehuda says you're not obligated to any of the mitzvos, he could learn that you would be obligated not to go against the Torah, not to do a mitzvah lo saseh. Because Tosfos' proof that he's right, that he has to be chayav midarabbanan, is only coming based on the fact that he's going to be like a complete goy. So if you assume he's not going to be like a complete goy, so then you don't have to say this anymore. There's two practical differences that come out, the two different ways of answering this question from Megillah. Is this too deep, or you want to keep it more simpler? I don't know. Am I going too deep over here? Trying to explain the two different ways of resolving this question. And there's two practical differences. The first practical difference is, according to Tosfos, a summa, any summa, whether you're blind from birth or you're not blind from birth, or you're blind after birth, you're only obligated midrabbanan and mitzvos. And he's also there's a lot of nafkamias. First of all, he's paskening also Kriya Shema is only midrabbanan, which is something that we don't hold like. We don't hold like that. We assume that Kriya Shema, at least the first pasuk of Kriya Shema, is d'oraisa. Those is assuming that Kriya Shema, first of all, assumes chayiv midrabbanan. Second of all, Kriya Shema he's assuming is derabanan. Third of all, he's assuming a katan shegia l'chinuch. The mitzvah is not on the katan; it's the mitzvah on the father to teach him. He doesn't have a mitzvah. And fourth of all, Tosfos is learning that that on the d'oraisa level, a summa is allowed to do a lo saseh. He's allowed to violate the Torah. For example, if he would go ahead and eat a cheeseburger, he wouldn't incur malchus, because malchus is only a fair d'oraisa. This is a big practical difference. According to Tosfos, he would learn that he's only violating an Isser D'Rabbanan, because he says the same thing, just like he has no mitzvahs essay, he has no mitzvahs lo essay also. That comes out from Tosfos. Tosfos' proof is, what is he? He's going to be like a guy. So you see that Tosfos exempts, according to Rabbi Yehuda, not just from mitzvahs assay, but mitzvahs lo essay also. There's a lot of practical differences based on these two ways of understanding, of answering this question. According to the other Rishonim, that learn that really the way to answer the Gemara in Megillah is to say that our Gomorrah was also talking about a blind person from birth, and therefore, if he's blind from birth, so then he's not obligated at all in the mitzvos, but he would be obligated not to violate any of the mitzvos lo saseh in the Torah, and he would get malchus for that. And it would come out also, according to that way of learning, that if you were at one point able to see and then you became blind, so you would actually be chayiv midoraisa, even according to Rabbi Yehuda in the mitzvos, you'd be chayiv midoraisa in the mitzvos, and therefore that would resolve the question in Megillah. You could say that we don't have the problem with Gemara Megillah because it's all based on the premise that a summa is only chayiv midrabbanan. But now we could say that if, as long as he saw in his lifetime, he would be chayiv midaraisa. So then we can say Kriya Shema is also daraisa. And we say a summa could exhibit poris al Shema. It's talking about a summa that ra maurus miyamav, that he became blind during his lifetime. And also, we wouldn't be a problem with the Katan Shegia Lachinach. We could learn differently. A Katan Shegia Lachinach is different because he's derabanan, even though he's really a fully obligated to the Katan Shegia Lachinach. It's not just a mitzvah on the father to teach him. It's his own mitzvah. He's chayav derabanan, but he can't be paris al shma because other people have shma as d'oraisa. So he's a regular derabanan. He can't be motzi a full d'oraisa. So it comes out there's 4 basic practical halachic differences between these 2 different ways of resolving this question from Megillah.
Time's up.
Anyone following? Not really.
No.
Okay.
No, okay.
Also-
Did anyone Phil? Maybe Phil, what?
I do have a couple of questions, but we'll have to go through it tomorrow. And there is, see, when we're talking about mishpatim and you're adding on concepts of, you think the deraisa, we understand the deraisa and whether you're exempting other people, that's a different question. That's a question there. But when we're talking about mishpatim and we're talking about diyunim, are we talking about, and this is where the original question came from, are we talking about things that are only mamon that he's involved, that he can't be a witness like Moshe's? Or are we talking about things like you say, Misa, dinim b'nei Adam? Is there a dinim b'nei Adam that he's chayav or not? And that's the difference between dinim b'nei b'shamayim. That's another level. Like, kriyat shema, whether he does kriyat shema or not, is not affecting him killing somebody, not affecting him doing damage to somebody. So there are different, there are different levels, different levels of different penalties. And it's not just something between you and Hashem. That's when you say mitzvahs loa say to do. It's a mitzvah loa say, but when you say mitzvah loa say, it's not the same as killing somebody. It's not the same. Yeah, it's within it, but there's also a biday. The punishment requires a beit din for it to happen, and you may not have that punishment. He may not be allowed to go to beit din. You can't take him to beit din under circumstances of the sunnah. So it's a whole lot of technicality, so to speak. Anyway, it is late now.
All right, we'll talk about this more tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All right, everyone have a good day. Enjoy your day. We'll see you tomorrow.